The stars were calm, the galaxy quiet. Peace had lasted for years between the human colonies and the alien empires. No one expected the Dreveth, a race of brutal sky invaders, to return. But they came without warning. Fire fell from the sky, burning spaceports and cities. Their warships cut through defenses like paper. On the edge of the galaxy, the planet Veldari was under attack. It was a royal world, known for its beauty and peace. But now it screamed. Explosions lit the skies. Thousands fled. Soldiers were crushed. And in the middle of it all was Queen Thelena, the young ruler of Veldari, caught in a war she never asked for. A human unit was sent to assist, a small strike force of elite rescue specialists. Among them was one quiet soldier, Elias Rourke. He wasn't the leader, he wasn't the strongest, but he had a sharp mind and a fearless heart. As chaos spread through the palace, Thelena tried to hold her ground. She wore armor made of crystal and gold, standing tall even when guards fell around her. She refused to run. But even alien queens bleed, and when the Dreveth commander smashed through the throne room gates, she was struck down, left for dead. Elias wasn't supposed to be there. His orders were to secure the hangars, but he heard a distress signal. A short, broken voice calling from the palace. Something in that voice, weak but proud, pulled at him. He went in alone. The halls were torn apart. Bodies, fire, smoke. He moved fast, using cover, dodging patrols, pushing deeper. Then he found her. She was lying beside her throne, blood on her lips, trying to reach for her staff. Her glowing eyes met his. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Without hesitation, Elias lifted her into his arms. She was heavier than she. Looked, her armor thick with ornate designs. But he didn't stop. Through shattered glass halls and burning bridges, he carried her to the emergency docks. The Queen's breath was fading. He had minutes. He didn't ask for permission. He removed his own oxygen unit and gave it to her. Then, using a stolen escape pod, he launched them both into the upper atmosphere, right into a Dreveth patrol zone. He fought them with only a blaster and raw courage. 1 pod versus 3 fighters. Somehow they made it through, barely. When they landed on a nearby moon, the system was dark. No help, no backup, just him and a wounded queen in a cold, alien jungle. He built a fire. He stitched her wounds. He gave her his rations. For 2 nights he stayed with her. No formal titles, no orders. They were just 2 souls in the void, survivors of a world gone mad. She opened up slowly, told him about the burden of ruling, her fears, her loneliness. He didn't speak much, but he listened. And when she reached for his hand, he didn't pull away. On the 3rd night, before the rescue ship arrived, they shared something soft and unforgettable. No promises, no speeches. Just warmth in the cold. Then he was gone. When Thelena woke on her royal cruiser, Elias had vanished. No note, no goodbye. Just her crown beside her, and a single violet blossom from the jungle lying where he had been. She tried to find him, but he disappeared, lost in the human systems. 5 years passed. Thelena ruled with fire in her voice and sorrow in her heart. She defeated the Dreveth, rebuilt her world, became stronger than any queen before her. But she never forgot the man who saved her, held her, and vanished like a ghost. And now, after all this time, she's found him again, and he has no idea she's coming. Queen Thelena stood on the bridge of her royal vessel, her violet eyes locked on a holographic map of the outer colonies. Her fingers hovered over the human trade routes, her gaze fixed with a quiet intensity. Around her, advisors whispered and waited, but she spoke only one name: Elias Rourke. The room went silent. No one dared question the Queen's command. She was not the same woman who had been carried from a burning palace 5 years ago. Her presence now was commanding. Her armor gleamed like starlight. Her voice could quiet armies. But inside, behind the regal grace and fierce diplomacy, something remained unfinished. She had searched in secret. Each year she sent scouts, quiet messages, unmarked probes to human-controlled sectors. Nothing came back until now. A lone report from a border trader. A human man matching Elias's description had been seen living quietly on a backwater moon called Vera 9. He worked in a scrapyard, fixed machines, kept to himself. No name, no records. But the trader said something else, a strange detail that hit Thelina like thunder. He leaves a flower every week on the cliff, always the same, violet blossom. Just like the one you wear, Majesty. Thelina closed her eyes. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the console, dotted was him. She gave her orders that same moment quietly. No fleets, no war banners, just one stealth ship. Just her. Vera 9 was not a place for royalty. It was dust and rust and forgotten tech. Broken satellites floated in low orbit. The air was breathable, but rough. Most who came here wanted to be lost. Her ship landed in the shadows of jagged cliffs. The sun burned red on the horizon. She wore no crown, no heavy armor, just a dark travel cloak and the pendant Elias had once repaired with his own hands. She walked into the scrapyard alone. The place was quiet, filled with rusted walkers and half-buried pods. Strange music drifted from a nearby shack. She followed it. Inside she saw him, older, stronger, a small beard now. He wore plain clothes and was hunched over a machine, fixing a broken fusion coil. His hands moved with quiet skill. He hadn't seen her yet. For a moment, she just stood there, watching him. He had no idea who was behind him. No idea that the queen of an entire world had crossed stars to find him. She stepped forward. A floor panel creaked under her foot. Elias turned. At first, his expression was confusion, then shock, then disbelief. He stood slowly, his lips parted, but no words came. His eyes locked with her eyes he had only seen in dreams for years. "Thelina?" he said softly. She didn't smile. Not yet. She walked up to him close until their faces were inches apart. "You left," she whispered. "No message, no goodbye. Just a flower." Elias looked away. "You were a queen." "I was just—" She stopped him with a hand on his chest. "I was a woman," she said. "And you were the only one who saw that." He stood frozen, unsure what to do, what to say. Then she stepped back and turned toward the door. "I didn't come here for explanations," she said. "I came to see if I meant anything to you, or if I was just a memory you were trying to forget." She paused. "I'll be here 3 days. After that, I return to my world." She left the shack and walked into the sunset glow, her heart beating louder than it had in years. Behind her, Elias remained still, his hands trembling, because the woman he never stopped thinking about had just returned, and she wasn't here by accident. Elias didn't sleep that night. He lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling of his small cabin, the walls humming with the soft buzz of old machinery. Outside, wind howled gently through the scrapyard towers. But inside him, it was a storm. She was really here. For 5 years he had thought of her every week, every moonrise. The jungle flower he left on the cliff wasn't for some dream. It was for her. And now she had stood in front of him, as beautiful and fierce as he remembered, wearing a look that tore through the quiet life he'd built. He tried to bury those memories after the rescue. He told himself she was a queen, unreachable. That night they spent under alien stars was real, but not for someone like him. She had her people, her crown, her future. He had war scars, a broken past, and hands only good for fixing machines, but now she was here. And she gave him 3 days. He rose before dawn. His hands moved on their own, fixing things that didn't need fixing. The other scrapyard workers didn't ask questions. Elias never talked much anyway. But they saw it in his eyes. He was somewhere. Else. By midday, he walked back to the cliff. It was a quiet place where the rocks met the sky. The wind always carried a soft hum here, like whispers. He found her there already, standing at the edge, looking out over the deep canyon, her cloak dancing in the breeze. She didn't turn when he approached. "I used to think you were a dream," Elias said softly. She tilted her head. "And I thought you were a ghost." He smiled weakly. "I didn't know how to be anything else." Thelina turned to face him. Her violet hair glowed in the fading sunlight. "You could have stayed. You were going back to a palace. I was going back to nothing." She stepped closer. "You gave me your air, your strength, your warmth. You saved me." "That wasn't nothing." They sat together on the cliff's edge, knees almost touching, silence stretching long between them. "I kept looking," she said finally. "Across stars, through databases. I even sent emissaries in secret, but you disappeared." "I had." "Teo," Elias whispered. "I didn't belong in your world." Thelina's voice was quiet but firm. "Did you ever ask me what I wanted?" Elias looked at her. "What did you want?" She hesitated. "Then, you." The word hit him harder than any battle ever had. He wanted to believe it. But part of him was still trapped in the ruins of that old war, in the smoke and fire and the feeling of never being enough. "I'm just a man," he said. "No title, no armor, just a tired soul." Thelina gave him a small, knowing smile. "And I'm still the woman who shared her fears with you on a cold moon and trusted you with her life." She leaned forward, her voice almost a whisper. "I'm not here as a queen." Elias stared into her eyes. The wind blew soft between them. His heart ached with everything he never said, everything he buried. And still, he hesitated. She rose and gave him one last glance. "You have 2 days left," she said, then walked away through the rocks. Elias watched her go, the desert wind brushing past his face, because deep inside, he was beginning to realize he never truly let her go. And now, the stars had brought her back. The next day brought silence. Elias worked, as usual, welding a broken arm on a derelict crawler and reprogramming an old maintenance bot, but his mind was miles away. Every tool he touched reminded him of the way she once reached for his hand on that cold moon. The way her fingers trembled but didn't let go. That night, he didn't return to the cliff. Instead, he walked into the old warehouse near the edge of the scrapyard. He had stored his old gear there, the body armor, the cracked helmet, the logbook from his days as a soldier. Things he had sworn to never touch again. He sat on the crate marked with his name and opened the logbook. The last entry was dated 5 years ago. Mission complete. Royals safely extracted. No further contact. But under that, in smaller handwriting, a note he had written one night in a haze of memory. "Why does it still hurt to breathe when I think of her?" He closed the book and stood in the dim light. Dust swirling in the air. He didn't know if he could face her again. Not yet. But across the scrapyard, Queen Thelina wasn't sleeping either. She sat in her quiet quarters aboard the stealth ship, the stars outside the window painting her skin with silver. Her royal guards stayed back as ordered. She had come alone in spirit, not just in form. Her fingers traced the pendant at her throat, the one he had fixed for her long ago. Her mind kept returning to his eyes, the pain behind them, the way he flinched slightly when she stepped too close. He had saved her once. Now she wanted to save him. But he wouldn't let her in. The next morning, she didn't wait. She returned to the scrapyard just as the sun began to rise, casting red-orange light across the cliffs. She found him near the central repair bay, tools in hand, his back to her. He heard her footsteps but didn't turn. "You're early," he said, voice quiet. "I didn't want to waste another day," she replied. He set the tools down slowly, then looked over his shoulder. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Out of everyone in the galaxy, why come for me?" Thelina walked closer, her voice steady. Because I was never alone after that night. You stayed with me, even if you weren't there, and maybe I stayed with you too. Elias turned to face her, the sun catching the faint scars on his face. But I walked away, she nodded. You did. But not because you didn't care. You left because you thought you weren't worthy. He lowered his gaze. Maybe I wasn't. She stepped forward until she stood right in front of him. I'm not here to judge your past, she said. I'm here to give you a choice. He looked up at her. What choice? To keep hiding behind these walls you built, she said. Softly, or to take my hand again. Silence stretched between them. Then she did something unexpected. She took off her pendant and placed it in his hand. This time, she whispered, I'll wait. But not forever. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the warm light, holding the very thing that had once connected them. Elias looked down at it. Her warmth lingered on the metal, and in that moment, something cracked inside him. Wall built from years of guilt and fear began to crumble. That night, rain fell over VEYR-9. It was rare for this dusty moon to see rain. But tonight the sky wept as if it knew something old was breaking, and something new was trying to grow. Elias stood outside his cabin, the pendant still in his hand. Water dripping from his hair and soaking his clothes. He didn't care. The cold reminded him he was still alive. For 5 years, he had tried to forget her, tried to bury the ache. But she had always been there, in his dreams, in the quiet, in every violet flower he left on the cliff. He had told himself it was better this way, that she had a world to rule and he had nothing to give. But now she had come for him. Not with ships and armies, but with silence, honesty, and a single question. Will you take my hand again? He didn't sleep. At sunrise, he went to the cliff. She was already there. Hood pulled over her head, eyes scanning the horizon. She didn't look surprised when he approached. He stood beside her, quiet. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Elias said, Do you remember the second night? On the moon? She turned slightly, eyes softening. You sang. He nodded. An old earth song. I barely remembered the words. I remember, she whispered. Your voice was shaking. I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid that moment wouldn't last. She looked at him, but it did. It's lasted 5 years. He exhaled slowly. I kept thinking you deserved someone better, stronger, smarter, royal. I don't need royal, she said. I need real. He turned to her, the words rising from the deepest part of him. You made me feel like I wasn't broken anymore. She blinked, then reached out. This time he didn't step back. Her hand touched his chest, gently. You were never broken, Elias, just hiding. He took her hand in both of his grip firm but gentle. Then maybe. I don't want to hide anymore. Rain started again, soft and steady. Thalina didn't let go. They stood there in the quiet storm, the desert wind brushing their faces, the past falling away with each drop. No palace walls, no war, no roles to play, just two people who had once shared a single night, and now shared something more, a second chance, and this time neither of them would run. The next day, the scrapyard workers noticed something strange. The quiet man who never spoke much, Elias Rourke, was walking beside a woman none of them had ever seen before. She wore a simple travel cloak, but something in her walk told everyone she wasn't ordinary. She looked like someone who could command a room with just a glance, and yet she walked beside Elias like an equal. Not a queen, not a guest, just someone who wanted to know his world. Thalina had insisted. She wanted to see his life, not the medals, not the memories of war, but the small things that made him who he was now. So he showed her the old machines he fixed, the places he went to think, the ledge where he left her flour every week. They sat on the edge of a rusted cargo hauler, legs dangling, watching the sun set beyond the canyon. Strange, she said. quietly, "How this dusty place feels more peaceful than my palace." Elias glanced at her. "You ever get tired of it? Ruling, I mean." She thought for a long moment. "Not tired. But sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to not be bowed to. To not carry the weight of millions. Just be someone." "You are someone," Elias said, "even without the crown." She looked at him, a gentle smile forming. "That's why I came. To remember that." He looked away, unsure. "What happens when you leave? When you go back to your people?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I've spent 5 years ruling with strength and pride. But the one thing I never did was choose something for myself." He turned to her. "What are you saying?" She looked at him directly, her eyes glowing faintly in the twilight. "I'm saying if I return alone, I return empty." His heart thudded hard in his chest. "But I'm not royalty," he said again, softer this time. "I don't know how to fit into your world." She reached over, took his hand, and placed it gently on her chest where her heart beat steady beneath her cloak. "Then build a new one with me." The words lingered in the air between them. Elias didn't speak. He just nodded, eyes locked on hers. And that night, for the first time in 5 years, they didn't part when the stars came out. They stayed close, sharing quiet words, shared silence, shared warmth. Because some things don't fade with time. Some things are meant to be found again. The stars above Vera 9 blinked silently, cold and bright. Inside her ship, Thelina stood before the open ramp. Her cloak was folded neatly, her armor cleaned and prepared. The royal insignia shimmered faintly on her chest. She had sent word to her court, just 2 lines. "I found what I lost. I will return when ready." Elias stood beside her. He wasn't wearing armor or medals, just his old travel jacket. He still had oil under his fingernails. Still looked like a man who lived with machines. But now, he stood taller. His eyes were clearer, and his hand was holding hers. He hadn't answered her question with a speech, just quiet actions. He had shown up every morning since, sat beside her on the cliffs, cooked for her, smiled at her with something she hadn't seen in a long time, peace. Now, the moment had come. The ship's engines were humming softly. Elias looked at her. "You sure they'll accept me?" Thelina turned to him, her voice calm. "You saved their queen. And you carry no title, no weapon, but you carry my heart." He smiled faintly. "That's a heavy thing to carry." "Not for you," she said. They walked together into the ship. When the ramp closed behind them, it didn't feel like the end of something. It felt like the beginning. The royal pilot bowed slightly as Thelina entered the bridge, then blinked in surprise when he saw Elias, but she only said, "Prepare for jump." Elias stood behind her, watching the stars shift outside the viewport. And as the ship lifted into the sky, he finally spoke. "I still don't know what I'm supposed to be." She turned, reached up and brushed his face with her fingers. "You're mine." And that was enough. As they entered the stars together, the people of Veldari prepared for their queen's return, but they didn't know she was no longer alone. Because 5 years ago, a queen was saved by a nameless soldier, and now, that same soldier returned with her, not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as the man she chose. The war had ended, but their story had just begun.